Christmas time in Washington, Democrats rehearse, getting in the gear for 4 more years. Things not getting worse. Republicans drank whiskey neat, thank their lucky stars. They said, cannot seek another term, there'll be no more FDRs. I sat home in Tennessee, staring at the screen, uneasy feeling in my chest, wondering what it means. So come back with a Guthrie, come back to us now. Tear your eyes from paradise and rise again somehow. If you run into Jesus, maybe he can help you out. Come back, Woody Guthrie, to us now. Follow in your footsteps once back in my younger days. Somewhere I feel to find your trail. Now I'm stumbling through the haze. But there's killers on the highway now, and a man can't get around. So I sold my soul for wheels that roll. Now I'm stuck here in this town. So come back, Woody Guthrie, come back to us now. Tear your eyes from paradise and rise again somehow. If you run into Jesus, maybe he can help us out. Come back, Woody Guthrie, to us now. Woody, there's foxes in the hen house, cows out in the corn. Our unions have been busted, their proud red banners torn. But if you listen to the radio, they'll tell you all is well. But you and me and Cisco know it's going straight to hell. Come back, Emma Goldman, rise up, old Joe Hill. The barricades are going up, they cannot break our will. Come back to us, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, marching out of Selma while the bells of freedom ring. And come back, Woody Guthrie, come back to us now. Tear your eyes from paradise and rise again somehow.
Wow, that was amazing. Good evening, everyone. I'm Felicia Wong, and it is my great honor to serve as the president and CEO of the Roosevelt Institute. It's terrific to be together again, even if this year is a little bit different. And thank you all for joining us for the FDR Distinguished Public Service Awards. Last year, we were forced to pause this wonderful ceremony, this wonderful tradition, because COVID-19 changed our lives abruptly and for some, irrevocably. And in the years since, we have all faced tragedy and loss. But we've also gained a lot of clarity in the last 12 months about who we are, about what we value, and about how we hope to change a society that wasn't ready when crisis struck. Many people, including President Biden, have described this moment in our history as Rooseveltian, and that's with good reason. Because as in FDR's time, the scale of our challenges is vast. COVID-19 has amplified economic inequality, systemic racism. The climate crisis threatens our planet and our people, and assaults on our democracy have tested the faith in our institutions. As we saw last week, Asian American and Pacific Islander people we have experienced a rise in hate crimes and violence against our communities. And these acts are rooted in white supremacy and fueled by xenophobia. And we must stand together against this kind of hatred. And so I am grateful that today, as in FDR's time, public servants are rising to the occasion. They're pitching in and they're thinking big and they're fighting on when our nation needs them most. Some great new public servants have joined the new administration, carrying on their lives' work and bringing Rooseveltian values to the very highest levels of government. And I am really excited that that group includes a dozen former Roosevelt Institute and Network alumni and board members. Others have continued the fight for worker rights and worker protections on the front lines and on picket lines. And some, including our next presenter, Speaker Pelosi, have sought to craft policy that meets this moment by transforming rather than reforming, and by building more equitable and democratic systems. The American Rescue Plan, which is an FDR-sized piece of legislation, reminds us what government can do when it spends its money and its political capital on people, when it centers public concerns and works for the public good. The work that we have seen already is a reminder that we are the economy, and is a reminder, as FDR himself said during times that were just as perilous as ours, that government is ourselves. It is not an alien power over us. The public servants we celebrate tonight embody these truths, and we are very proud to honor them with this year's Distinguished Public Service Awards. But before we turn to them, I want to quickly acknowledge the people who made this virtual ceremony, it's kind of amazing, into one of our biggest DPSA awards ever. So thank you to Roosevelt board members, Neil Ditchick and Brian Wolf, who led our fundraising committee. Thank you to our champion sponsors, the Peter and Judy Bloom Kovler Foundation, the Teamsters, the AFL-CIO, the AFT, SCIU, CWA, UAW, the Boilermakers, and Southern Company. That is an amazing roster of champions, and we thank you. Thank you also to our incredibly talented musical guest, Steve Earle, to former DPSA recipients, Chairwoman Rosa DeLauro, President Lee Saunders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and of course to our honorary co-chairs, Speaker Pelosi and Majority Leader Schumer. There are many more who helped make this happen, and I am so grateful to all of you. Even without the beautiful rooftop view of the Teamsters, which President Hoffa assures me will get back to next year, we are ready tonight for a very special program. I hope you can enjoy this from the comfort of your own home. And I encourage you to participate in the chat and to celebrate because one thing remains true. We are better together, and I'm honored that you've decided to spend the next hour with us as we pay tribute to two incredible leaders, Chairman Frank Pallone and Secretary Treasurer Liz Shuler.
The values of democracy were instilled in me by example, by watching my grandparents, my parents, and my older brother, who set an example for the rest of us by getting involved in student government very early. These values that undergird democracy are important to me because I want my children and grandchildren to grow up in a society that is strongly committed to every person. These have been such challenging years. And actually for many years, public service has been demeaned, both in budget and in rhetoric. Both my grandparents believed in the dignity of the human person, that democracy is based on the notion that every human being is important and deserves rights and privileges of democracy. They perhaps came about it in separate ways, but my grandfather and my grandmother both strove their entire lives to bring that value to bear in the government that our democracy builds up. Public service is so important as the New Deal proved, in creating a government that's responsive to all the people. So we, as the Roosevelt Institute, wanted to elevate recognition of that by giving Distinguished Public Service Awards to persons who had really persevered and given their lives to public service, whether elected public service or as part of supportive organizations like labor unions.
Our first speaker needs no introduction. She was one of the very first DPSA recipients in 2008. She has been an honorary co-chair of this event annually ever since, and she is our fearless, bold, and unwavering champion, our Speaker of the House. Speaker Pelosi, we are honored to have you here tonight as you present this year's award to Chairman Pallone.
Thank you so much, Felicia. It's my honor to be here and to hear your words as you reference what is happening in our country through the API community. And I'm so sorry that you have to undergo that. But how well fortified you are to fight all of that with the values of the Roosevelt Institute. I thank you and Board Chair Anna Roosevelt. How about that beautiful, beautiful presentation about her talking about her grandparents in such a patriotic as well as personal family way, and to this institute for ensuring that the values that she talked about continue to thrive. It's an honor to join leaders and colleagues for the FD, Franklin Delano Roosevelt Public, we always call it Franklin and Eleanor, but you know, Service Awards, including Liz Shuler, who will be receiving the award an award tonight, the first woman to be elected Secretary Treasurer of the ALF-CIO. And Liz, thank you for your commitment to public service, and congratulations on the honor made all the more grand by receiving it from Lonnie Stevenson, President of IBEW. And by the way, they have a nice roof too, in case you need another place. I thank you for referencing that I was an early recipient. I was a proud recipient with this award, which I shared with then Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. I would have that displayed here at home, but I thought it was appropriate to have the bust of Franklin Roosevelt in the Speaker's office, so anyone who came there saw what our values were. And as I watched the film, I couldn't help but think of my own father, who served as a New Deal Democrat in Congress under Franklin Roosevelt. And again, the whole idea that we were instilled in our family with the values, of course, but also the approach, persistent, bold experimentation, not wedded to the way it was, build back better, persistent, bold experimentation. Franklin Roosevelt spoke to the needs of all the people with the compassion to understand their fears and the courage to help realize their aspirations. Hence, the rescue package. That is that spirit is so much a part of that package. Nearly 90 years ago, the new president then, FDR, delivered his inaugural address during a time of fear and anguish. Sound familiar? As the economy careened into recession and hope seemed all but snuffed out, he told the people, only a foolish optimist can deny the dark realities of our time, he said. And he continued, this great nation will endure as it has always endured, will revive and will prosper. With boldness of vision and extraordinary courage, Franklin Roosevelt led our nation out of a grave crisis and into a future of fairness, justice, and dignity for all. That is an example that we need today. Joe Biden is part of that leadership. And the person that I am honored to give this award to this evening is part of it as well. It is fitting today that we recognize the visionary leadership of my colleague, Chairman Frank Pallone. Frank Pallone is a true heir to the Roosevelt legacy, having dedicated his entire career, including 17 terms in the Congress, fighting for those in need. As a chairman of the mighty Energy and Commerce Committee, he has used his gavel for good, harnessing the great power of this committee for the people. A chairman that he served under there, Chairman Dingell, also a recipient of this award, you'd like to say when speaking about the great breadth of the Energy and Commerce Committee, if it moves, it's energy. If it doesn't, it's commerce. That was his way of saying everything is under his jurisdiction. Frank Pallone acts in the spirit of that, that breadth of responsibility. He is known to all as a champion for America's health, whether leading the way on H.R. 3, the Elijah Cummings lower drug cost legislation, or strengthening the ACA and protecting Medicare and Medicaid, passing legislation to end surprise billing, spearheading our work to reach a 100% clean energy future by 2050. And this year he was front and center in Congress's work to save lives and livelihood with our great relief legislation, the American Rescue Plan, in the tradition of FDR. And as I say that, I know that Peter Koffler is probably there, and Peter has been a champion for all of you, but long before I knew about the Institute, I knew about his devotion to the legacy of Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt. So when I say these things, he has said them to me over the years. Moving forward, we will continue to look to his leadership. Now we're back to Frank Pallone's leadership as we build back better with a future of justice and for every person in every zip code in the spirit of FDR. The test of our progress, FDR said, President Roosevelt said, the test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have too much, it's whether we provide enough for those who have too little. Everybody knows that. But we acted upon it with this rescue plan. That is our charge once more, building back better with justice for those in need. Frank Pallone is in the lead in doing that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman Pallone, for your leadership in this mission. Congratulations on this well-deserved honor, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for working for the children, for the people, in the spirit of FDR.
Thank you. I want to thank our speaker and all that she does. And Felicia, thank you. And thank you to the Roosevelt Institute. Let me just say a few words about Nancy Pelosi. You know, Felicia, when you said that she crafts policies to meet the moment, that is so true. And I could spend the whole, 5 or 6 minutes here just talking about her, but I just want to give you a few examples When we were doing the Affordable Care Act, some of you may remember that we had passed a House bill, and then the Senate passed its bill. But then we lost Ted Kennedy, and we didn't have the 60 votes. And so the only way we could pass the bill was to pass the Senate bill. Now, you usually go to conference, and the House doesn't like to just pass the Senate bill. Nobody does that, right? And Nancy came to our Democratic caucus and she said, we have to do that. I do not take no for an answer. If it wasn't for her, the Affordable Care Act would never have become law. And then I remember another time when we were going through the bill, and I had proposed what we call the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act, which I had worked on for 14 years to try to improve the health of American Indians. And there was a suggestion that we take it out of the bill because the bill was too long. The Republicans were saying, that bill's too long. You don't know what's in it, blah, blah, blah. And I went to the caucus, and members of the caucus were saying, well, we just can't have it. This bill's too long. And Nancy got up and said, no. She said, Frank Pallone has been working on that bill for 14 years, and it's important, and we're going to do it. And that happens all the time when it looks like things are hopeless, like with surprise billing, which we thought wasn't going to become law. And Nancy steps in and says, we are going to do it. That's true leadership. And I'll never forget, there's so many other instances like that. But I just want to say, I thank you for this award. I mean, I obviously don't think I deserve it, but I appreciate in very humble way that you're giving it to me. I was listening to the video with Anna Roosevelt, and she talked about public service. And I think she said how her father got into public service at a very young age. Well, I have to tell you, I was in 4th grade one day, and they decided to have a student government election. And I said, I'm going to run. I was very shy. I didn't think maybe this was a good thing, but I did it. And ever since then, I've decided that that's what I want to do in life, is be a public servant, because my dad always said it's the best way you can actually achieve your goals and help people. But going back to Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt, I grew up with grandparents and parents that just, basically idealized both of them and tried to follow in their footsteps in whatever small way they could. So, my father actually was I always say my grandparents, my grandmother was was on one side was a dressmaker, and my grandfather worked for the post office. And during the Depression, they would always talk about how, they wouldn't even have a job if it wasn't for Franklin Roosevelt. And then my father, who was a rather conservative, I would say, you'd characterize him as very conservative, but he always said to me, you have to be a Democrat, and you can't vote for anybody for Democrats in your whole life because of Franklin Roosevelt. He's the one that made the difference, and I will always be a Democrat, no matter how conservative I am, he would say. And then I remember when my mother was a big, she loved Eleanor Roosevelt, and she always told me about the incident where Eleanor Roosevelt was at the Daughters of American Revolution, and Marian Anderson was singing, and she wasn't there, my mother, but she told me the story. And how Eleanor wouldn't sit. I think she sat in the middle or something. I don't remember the details, because she wasn't going to sit in a segregated place while Marian Anderson sang. So anyway, this is all so important. I don't want to keep going through it, but I just wanted to talk about 2 things, if I could, and that's our speaker mentioned it. One was the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act came through the Energy and Commerce Committee. Henry Waxman actually was the chair at the time, if I'm not mistaken, and we had there were 6 of us involved in drafting in the House side. I'm the last person in Congress that was there. And it just is an example really of the Roosevelt tradition, where we have, 20, 30 million Americans that didn't have health insurance and now have it as a result. And it was so resilient. And we are continuing to work on it. So we just did in the American Rescue Plan, made it easier for people with tax credits and also a subsidy to more people that would actually be able to sign up and get health insurance, which they didn't have before. And then, of course, Nancy talked about the American Rescue Plan. Not only did that improve on the Affordable Care Act, but so many other things to help people get through this pandemic. And again, in the Roosevelt tradition, one of the things that we did was to provide long-term funding for community health centers, because they're so important in terms of providing healthcare to people that don't have insurance. So all I can say to you is, I mean, I could go talk about the things we're doing and will continue to do. Nancy touched on some of them, like the HR3 to try to reduce prescription drug prices. But what we do as Democrats constantly in our committee and under the speaker's leadership is to try to help people. I'll just end with this. When we passed the American Rescue Plan, you know, it cost $1.9 trillion. And Nancy Pelosi said, look, 1.9 trillion to help people, to help kids, to help people with their health care, to give them food, to avoid the food lines that we saw during the pandemic. On the other hand, what did the Republicans do? They passed a tax cut in the first year of the Trump administration that only helped corporate interests and only helped the wealthy. We'll continue in the Roosevelt tradition of helping the average person. That's what America is all about. And we believe that government can make a difference. Thank you so much for this award.
I turn to the words of Shirley Chisholm, the first African-American woman in the US Congress. And she said, and I quote, "Service is the rent we pay for the privilege of living on this earth."
Think about your neighbors and your friends and your family members, those who are nurses, those who are hospital workers or sanitation workers or EMTs, school employees, childcare providers. Those are all public service workers providing essential services to their communities every single day.
Public service is what keeps us moving forward as a society. It is so important that we have a strong public service workforce, and I commend all of those who have kept at it, stood up, and maintained their service to our whole country during these past several years.
Many of these people have been in the trenches, making sure that people earned a living wage and made sure that they had the kind of work safety protections that are needed in the 21st century.
To me, public service means commitment. It means promoting the common good. It means putting your community's interests in front of your own. And that's what our members do every single day, the 1.4 million members of AFSCME.
Public service always meant to me everybody working together. It's about having a job that benefits the many, not the few, and the many over your own personal job. It's so important because it's what makes our communities and our society work.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt came about at a time when leadership was badly needed, when big ideas had to be formulated, when there was a lot to do, a lot of people's lives were at risk. And this country was in danger. There had to be a new social and economic compact struck with the American people. And I think the Roosevelters understand that. And that's the kind of policy formulation they've been working on at the college level and at the institute level.
We should not rely on the goodwill of corporations. We should not abandon government for the common good. We should not believe we can simply stand on the sidelines. We must be returning to a time when both parties agreed to build the social safety net to make opportunity real for people, especially in their time of need. We need to mobilize all of civil society to reclaim our country and our history, to protect the vulnerable and to protect children. That is what Franklin Roosevelt was all about. It is what the Roosevelt Institution is all about.
Wow, I love that video. And you can also hear that I live near a public servants because you can hear a fire alarm in the background. So I apologize for that. But now it is time for me to welcome President Lonnie Stevenson from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW. President Stevenson represents 775,000 active and retired members across North America, and he will present the DPSA award to his friend and colleague, Secretary Treasurer of the ALF-CIO, Liz Shuler. President Stevenson.
Thank you, Felicia. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, it's truly my honor tonight to recognize one of labor's movement's great leaders, great visionary, and a great fighter, ALF-CIO Secretary Treasurer, Liz Shuler. As an IBEW sister, Liz, of course, holds a special place in our hearts. I'm a proud member of the IBEW, and Liz is a proud member of the IBEW out of Portland, Oregon, Local 125, where she served in our political legislative department, making our voice heard on Capitol Hill before becoming executive assistant to IBEW President Hill. I can't tell you how proud we are when she first found out that Rich Trumka asked her to join his team, becoming the first ever woman to hold the position of Secretary Treasurer of the ALF-CIO. Sister Shuler came in at a tough time for the labor movement. The Great Recession had devastated labor's ranks. Soon after, right-wing politicians across the nation launched one of the biggest assaults on workers' rights in decades. The Supreme Court's Janus decision was, of course, another big blow. But as they say, she persevered. She didn't give up, and she didn't give in. She helped keep the ALF-CIO together, ensuring the resources that were there so labor could do its job. As one of the youngest ALF-CIO officials ever, she understood that winning the next generation of young workers to labor was critical for our movement's survival. She headed up the ALF-CIO's Young Worker Program, which inspired similar efforts in other unions, including mine. Many of those first generation young workers are now leaders of their unions today, and we owe much of that to Liz. She also understood early on that labor's role is empowering women and people of color. Line workers at Portland General Electric were IBEW, but the mostly women clerical workers had no voice. So she got to work organizing them. She knew the future of organized labor depending on reaching out to those underrepresented in our ranks. And she continues to speak out every day, just like she did when those clerical workers, about all the good things that unions bring, not just when it comes to wages or benefits, but when it comes to fighting for basic worker dignity and justice as well. Today, the ALF-CIO and the entire labor movement is stronger because of Liz. She has broken many glass ceilings in her career, and I know she will continue to break many more. Sister Shuler is truly deserving of this reward. So I'm proud to introduce one of this year's Franklin D. Roosevelt Distinguished Public Service Award winners, ALF-CIO Secretary Treasurer, Liz Shuler.
Wow, thank you so much, Lonnie. This is absolutely surreal. I'm at home and on my screen, I see all these incredible people and they're saying nice things about me, and I'm being, I guess, serenaded by Steve Earle. So I'll just say this is a phenomenal way to start the week. Can I come back tomorrow night is the question. So thank you, Lonnie. I'm so grateful for our many years of friendship and for your amazing leadership at my home union, the IBEW, but also throughout our movement. And can we just agree that the greatest speaker in history is Madam Speaker Nancy Pelosi, my shero? And thank you so much, Felicia, Anne, everyone at the Roosevelt Institute, and of course, Jim Hoffa, all the labor leaders and activists joining us tonight. The spirit of FDR is so alive in this moment, and he's being talked about in every corner of the country as we shape the plans for the future and reach for what is possible. And standing here with me on this Zoom, accepting this award, are 12.5 million working people who are out there pushing through every single day in this pandemic, through the worst public health crisis in a century, through the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, with no leadership, of course, from the last administration. But working people have stepped up. County and municipal workers, first responders, food, retail, transportation workers, construction, manufacturing, communication workers, our educators at every level are reskilling on the fly and pouring their heart and soul into virtual and hybrid teaching. Our nurses, healthcare workers are being asked to do and give in unprecedented ways, and they've endured a year of physical and emotional trauma. What about postal workers and letter carriers who delivered in an election where vote by mail happened on the biggest scale ever? And so many more. I could go on, but my point is, we are here to honor public service. And for the ways they serve so much more than themselves, we honor the essential workers on the front lines. And FDR understood every worker is essential. And as he said, entitled to the same security as the manager or the owner. And when he signed the National Labor Relations Act into law in 1935, it didn't just permit collective bargaining, it encouraged it, which is a far cry from where we are now as I watch workers get fired from their jobs every day when they try to organize a union. And now, after 80 years of attacks on the right to organize, inequality in this country is greater than at any point in our history. And as I talk to union members, they see now more than ever what a difference being in a union makes. Healthcare benefits, safety protection, paid sick leave. In a pandemic, it's life-saving. And with the most pro-worker administration since FDR, the American Rescue Plan has a hopeful New Deal spirit. Economic impact payments, enhanced unemployment benefits, tens of billions for vaccinations, pension protection for millions of retirees, childcare tax credits. So now we just have to pass the PRO Act, the Protecting the Right to Organize Act. And this bill would empower workers in every sector, in every state, to come together without fear. And I think FDR would agree, this is the moment to overcome fear, to do what's right. This is a moment for big, bold progress. And little did I know when I joined my local union and started organizing, how mighty we can be when we move as one. And I thought we were powerless to take on Enron when it came into Oregon, but we were the watchdogs, the ones who sounded the alarms on their corrupt practices. Unfortunately, Enron's greed led to its bankruptcy and wiped out my local union members' pensions, including my own father's. But fortunately, we put a wrench in their corporate takeover of our state. And that is what a union does. It gives working people a fighting chance. And I hope as we build this new path to the future, that people see the ALF-CIO and America's unions as a catalyst for change for all working people, not just some kind of closed club or special interest group. No, because the labor movement is where so many progressive causes and values converge: racial justice, gender equity. We are the place where issues and people connect. A third-generation steelworker in Pittsburgh, to a bridge painter who immigrated from Honduras, a professional football player in the NFLPA standing up to support warehouse workers, organizing right now at Amazon in Bessemer, Alabama. Every single fight is personal, but we win through the collective activism and collective progress. And as FDR said, it is a fundamental individual right of a worker to associate himself with other workers and to bargain collectively with his employer. And today, of course, we would add herself and themself. And in fact, Eleanor exercised that right by becoming a card-carrying member of the American Newspaper Guild. Giants like FDR and Eleanor blazed the progressive path, and ordinary Americans, like my parents, paved it for their children. My dad, a Vietnam veteran, found stability, the middle class, with a union. And my mom taught me how to fight. And the labor movement is one constant in that legacy, and we will rise to meet the next generation. So I am so humbled to receive this award. I'm grateful for all you do, and thank you so much. Again, I'm so honored.
Congratulations to Chairman Frank Pallone and to AFL-CIO Secretary-Treasurer Elizabeth Shuler on this well-deserved recognition. Over the years, the Roosevelt Institute has demonstrated a deep commitment to making government work for all of us. And Frank and Liz, they share that commitment. Frank has worked tirelessly to protect the environment. And over the past year, he has worked just as tirelessly to get people the relief they desperately need during this pandemic. It has been an honor to work alongside him on these issues, tackling the climate crisis head on, investing in our clean energy future, making healthcare a basic human right, and so much more. So Frank, thank you for all you do. Liz, thank you. Liz is a longtime champion of hardworking people all across our country. She persists in the fight for fair and decent wages and better hours and working conditions. She's helping workers build better futures for themselves and their families. And I am so grateful to Liz for her hard work and her effectiveness.
I would like to congratulate Frank Pallone and Liz Shuler. Thank you for your deep and abiding commitment to American workers and to American people sharing in the prosperity of this country equitably.
Congratulations, Chairman Pallone. We're so honored that you are receiving this award this year. Hearty congratulations to Liz Shuler. We are so grateful for your service in the labor field, and we're proud to present this award to you.
I congratulate this year's award recipients, Chairman Frank Pallone Jr. and Secretary Liz Shuler, for all of the wonderful work that you do. Chairman Pallone, it has been my honor to serve alongside you in the Congress. As chairman of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, you lead one of the broadest jurisdictions of any congressional committee, improving the lives of millions. And throughout your career, you have fought to make healthcare more affordable, more accessible. You have worked to protect and strengthen Medicare, Medicaid, and you have labored to make the country's food system safer. These are all indelible marks of leadership that embody the values of FDR in the greatest way possible. And you are such a close and a dear friend. I love you, Frank Pallone. Secretary Shuler, as the AFL-CIO Secretary-Treasurer, the first woman elected to that position, the youngest woman ever on the Federation's Executive Council. You are a force of nature. My mother, Louisa, used to say, and I quote, "Come on, girls, let's make our voices heard." You make your voice heard. You make others' voices heard, women's voices heard, working men and women's voices heard. And your commitment to leveraging diversity in the labor movement, implementing social justice, fighting for a union voice for all working families everywhere, it is the gold standard for how Americans should be treated.
I just want to thank them for the work that they do every single day. We need more folks on Capitol Hill like Frank to do the good things that he's doing. I mean, he's been a warrior on providing health care to workers across the country, making sure that it should be a right and not a privilege. And you should be very proud of that. And we work very, very closely with him. And he believes in empowering our communities and workers across the country. Liz is an individual within the labor movement, and when she talks, people listen. And I consider her a very close friend. and a partner and an ally. And I'm very, very proud to be in the foxhole with both of them every single day. And I continue to look forward to our work together that we're doing to improve the lives of working families all across America. And I will say the final thing, when they get the award, and I've lived through this because I have been an awardee, but they're going to enjoy looking at that FDR bust every single day. I have it in my office, and it reminds me of the challenges that we're faced with, but the success that we can have when we all work together.
Congratulations and thank you again to Chairman Pallone and Secretary Treasurer Shuler. The bust is a very important part of the DPSA, and we will make sure you get yours in your offices, and I'm sure you'll display them proudly. Speaking of pride, I just had to point out as a mom that my 19-year-old is now an EMT. And he is a very proud member of the International Association of EMTs and Paramedics, the IAEP. And my husband's a member of the Writers Guild, so we know how important labor is to America. So to close us out, I'd like to once again welcome back Steve Earle. Steve is not only an incredibly talented songwriter and musician, but he's an activist. And he uses his platform to continue to push our country toward a more equitable future. I am so grateful and honored that Steve is sharing his talents with us tonight.
It is my honor and pleasure to be here with you today, although I wish it was in person because I've enjoyed about as much of this virtual thing as I can stand, like a lot of us. I'm sure that's true of a lot of us. So Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt were not socialists. They were leaders who came to the rescue of a country and people in crisis and seized the moment by creating programs that put people to work, made it possible to organize into unions, created infrastructure, and put social safety nets in place that we couldn't imagine living without today. I think we can all agree that if there was ever a time for a new deal, it's right now at this post-pandemic moment, and when we've got to try to get the whole country back to work. So today we honor two people that have been instrumental in those efforts all along, even before all this happened. Chairman Pallone and Secretary Treasurer Liz Shuler. I wrote this song for Pete Seeger to honor him, and I got to sing it for him when I presented him with his his lifetime union card, which was when I think he was 92 at the time. And I told him after I presented, I said, "See, Pete, you don't have to pay your dues anymore," which he thought was really, really funny. But this is for you guys tonight. Yeah, one of these days I'm gonna lay this hammer down. I won't have to drag this weight around. When ain't no hunger and ain't no pain, I won't have to swing this thing. One of these days I'm gonna lay this hammer down. One of these nights I'm gonna sing a different tune. All night long beneath the silver moon. When the war's over and the union's strong, won't sing no more angry songs. One of these nights I'm gonna sing a different tune. Yeah, someday when my struggle's through, I won't have to strive. Until then, all I can do is let my hammer fly. Yeah, one of these days I'm burden resting on the ground. When the air don't choke and the ocean's clean, kids don't die from gasoline. One of these days I'm gonna lay this hammer down. John Henry was a mighty man. He worked his whole life long. When he made that hammer ring, he always sang this song. Now you can sing along if you want to, even virtually. I mean, it probably won't hurt you one bit. Might even help. Sing, go ahead and sing, or everybody will think you're Republicans, and if you are a Republican, they'll know that you were here. So I'll just do this Pete Seeger style. I'll give you the line, you can sing it back. So one of these days I'm going to lay this hammer down. 2, 3, 4. One of these days I'm going to lay this hammer down. I won't have to drag this weight around. I won't have to drag this weight around. When there ain't no hunger, ain't no pain. When there ain't no hunger and there ain't no pain, I won't have to swing this thing. One of these days I'm gonna lay this hammer down. Good singing. Yeah, one of these days I'm gonna lay this hammer down. Frank, Liz, thanks, congratulations. Thank y'all.
That was pretty awesome, Steve. Thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our show is over, but I just wanted to thank all of you, and especially to thank our sponsors. You've been seeing their names throughout the program, and without them, this would not have been possible. None of what we do is possible without the support of many, many, many people. With that, I just want to thank our staff, our speakers, of course, our honorees, and everyone who joined from home. Next year, we'll be back at the Teamsters, but for now, good night, stay safe, keep fighting.